Hello World Civilization students, Mr. Lassiter here, and in this video we're going to be looking at decolonization in Southeast Asia. Let's take a look at some of our goals. We want to look at what events led to decolonization in Southeast Asia, how did these nations achieve their independence, and we also want to look at some of the challenges these nations faced following independence, which we see also in the decolonization of sub-Saharan Africa. And so we're going to try to do that by looking at some specific examples in this video. So let's start out with what colonial Southeast Asia looked like. You can see this map here from 1895, and most of Southeast Asia was under some type of European colonization. The interest in Southeast Asia was initially prompted, of course, way back in the 16th century with spices. And the Portuguese arriving, later the Spanish and the Dutch, arriving to access spice markets in this area of the world. And several countries gain colonies. For example, in the Netherlands gains colonies. The Dutch East India Company is very much involved in trade. By 1800, the Dutch government took control of the East Indies. And they didn't just focus on spices. They focused on other cash crops like tea, rubber, and sugar. France will do much the same thing in French Indochina. And what ends up happening is that those cash crops are grown on lands that you would think would normally be growing things like rice or food stuff for the local population. And so that sometimes caused problems for local Indonesian population, as fields that would have grown food are instead growing cash crops, which are then exported. France also had a sizable empire in Southeast Asia. They defeated China in the Sino-French War of 1883 to 1885, and this gave them control of Vietnam. And over time, they gradually expanded into more territories, and we call their region French Indochina. And like the Dutch, they focused also on cash crops, especially rubber production. The United States gained the Philippines, which you see on this map, was controlled by Spain until the Spanish-American War of 1898, when the United States defeated Spain and purchased the Philippines. Now, there were nationalist groups in the Philippines at the time who thought they were going to gain their independence, and so fought a war with the United States. The United States, though, defeated those nationalist forces and maintained control of the Philippines for about the next 50 years. Now, Burma was conquered by the British in this region, as you also see. But what area didn't get conquered? Mainly just Siam. They escaped 19th century imperialism because they had a very strong government, and they also undertook modernizing reforms similar to what we saw with Japan in the mid-1800s. Now, why did decolonization occur? Well, a lot of this was precipitated by World War II, and the idea that Japan had occupied much of Southeast Asia in expanding their empire. France lost a lot of their colonies, as did others. Japanese occupied the Philippines, the Dutch East Indies. And so after the war, many people in these places thought that they would just naturally get their independence once the Japanese withdrew. But France and others basically just wanted their stuff back. Eventually, these countries do gain independence. The Philippines, Vietnam, Cambodia, Indonesia, Burma, which is now known as Myanmar. They all gained independence, but it took different forms, and they met different challenges. So let's take a look at these countries. The first of them is the Philippines, which was granted independence on July 4th, 1946. But there were still remnants of American imperialism upon gaining independence. For example, the United States was given free trade with the Philippines in exchange for us providing financial aid to help them recover from the destruction of World War II. And the United States also, for a time, maintained military bases in the Philippines. Now, the Philippines, even though they have some great things about this very large and prosperous country, had faced a lot of challenges for independence. They had corruption in government. They had contested elections. One leader maintained rule for quite some time just by ignoring elections, but it came out later that he had been stealing money from the government. Eventually, they did implement a new constitution and they negotiated the end of the U.S. military bases in the country, but they still have dealt with things like battling rebel forces who don't want to listen to what the government says. Even to this day, there are there's a great deal of controversy coming out of the Philippines. As President Rodrigo Duterte was elected this past year and initiated a war on drugs in the Philippines, in which, among other things, he encouraged Filipinos to turn in drug pushers and to even kill drug lords in the country. And he has advocated even killing and re-educating people who are addicted to drugs as they try to tackle a severe problem that is taken on the Philippines. Of course, this has been extremely controversial in the international community. Now let's look at another country, one that you're probably familiar with from a past video, and that is Vietnam. So Vietnam, of course, was a part of the French Empire and then later conquered by Japan. But at the end of World War II, the communists led by Ho Chi Minh seized control of Vietnam. France refused to accept the new government at first, and they wanted to fight to take back control of the region. But they later agreed to divide Vietnam north and south, and then to give it its independence in 1954. Of course, with a communist North Vietnam and a non-communist South Vietnam led by a dictator known as Diem, the United States was worried that communism might spread throughout all of Vietnam and then throughout all of Southeast Asia. And so the U.S. gets involved and basically, we go to war in Vietnam. There, of course, we have a video about this, so you can take a look at the Height of the Cold War video. But long story short, the United States is in Vietnam for about a decade, eventually withdraws with North and South Vietnam still divided, and then shortly after that, communist forces invade South Vietnam and unite the country under one communist government. Now, another country that faced challenges was Cambodia. They gained their independence from France as France had more and more conflict with Vietnam. And eventually, in 1975, a communist leader rose up, a man named Pol Pot, and he led a brutal revolutionary regime in Cambodia known as the Khmer Rouge. Ultimately, this government killed over 1 million Cambodians in the purges that went on in the country to eliminate all dissenters and other intellectuals who did not support Pol Pot's government. Eventually, this conflict in Cambodia led to problems in Vietnam, and war broke out between Vietnam and Cambodia in 1977. The government of Cambodia ended up falling, and Vietnam maintained some presence in the country until 1989. In 1993, Cambodia restored their monarchy, and since there have been some successes with democratic reforms, but there is still this legacy of the purges and the genocide committed by Pol Pot and his government. And there are also other challenges the countries face, like wide gaps between the rich and poor. Now, other countries face their own challenges. Burma, for example, gained independence in 1948, but there's been a legacy of fights, basically, between a repressive military government in the region and pro-democracy forces. In 1989, the country actually renamed itself Myanmar to reflect what their own view of their nation should be, but this has still been an ongoing problem to the present day. In Indonesia, one of the most populous countries in the world, they declared independence in 1945, and at first, the Dutch who controlled it said, nope, not going to happen, you don't get it. And then later on, the Dutch, after pressure from the international community, especially the United Nations, did kind of grant them independence in 1949. The country of Indonesia has dealt mostly with large population growth. They are the fourth most populous nation in the world. Indonesia is the largest Muslim country in the world, but this has, of course, led to instability and turmoil. There have been economic problems in dealing with a nation of this size that led to a coup. There was the creation of a police state at one point, and in 2001, they did manage to elect a democratic government. So Indonesia is often seen kind of as a modern Southeast Asian nation that has overcome some challenges, but the world certainly works closely with. So hopefully this gives you an idea of the different forms that Southeast Asian independence took, whether it was granted independence or wars for independence. And hopefully you saw kind of a range of the challenges that new countries face, especially with establishing governments, growth of population, and warfare. So if you have any other questions, feel free to ask us. And otherwise, we'll see you next time.